Hey ghouls and gals, welcome back to my channel. My name is Taylor and today's video is going to be another weekly reading vlog. It is Sunday, February 7th, and I just thought it would be a really good week to do a weekly reading vlog because I am going to be in the middle of, I'm in the middle of two month-long reading challenges. The first being Female February, and I feel like that's more on Bookstagram than BookTube. I'll leave all the information for the readathons down below, but I'm doing that one as well as participating in Blackathon, which of course is hosted primarily here on BookTube. So I'm looking to participate in both of them, and hopefully I can find some books that match both of the challenges, because otherwise I'm gonna have to read like 20-something books this month, and while I'd love to, that's just not gonna happen. So this is my first reading vlog of the month, and I have read one book already this month, which I absolutely loved. That would be The Bone Shard Daughter by Andrea Stewart. I actually have a full spoiler-free review of this. It should be up on my channel by the time you're watching this. I absolutely loved it. This is the first book in a new fantasy series. It's a trilogy, it's Asian inspired, it has really cool bone shard magic, and it was a really fun ride. So I've already finished this one. This does count for Female February. It counts for the prompt. Well, it actually could count for a lot of the prompts. I used this for pick a book with your favorite trope. So this has what I can only describe as a very much like a Mandalorian and Grogu style of relationship, where it's a very prickly man who kind of is doing his own thing, doesn't want to be a part of like a bigger story, bigger narrative, just wants to live his own life, and finds himself in the care of a very cute small animal in here. At least I know Grogu is, you know, a different species, but like finds himself with a mythical sort of animal, baby animal that he has to take care of. So that's one of my favorite tropes, and that was in here, which was really fun. This could also work for the prompt 2020 or 2021 debut author. This came out in 2020. If you listen to an audiobook, I switched back and forth between them. This could work for that prompt, it could work for the sci-fi or fantasy prompt. And if you need a book for the prompt to read a recommendation from a friend, I'm recommending this to all of you. So highly enjoyed this one. As for other books I'm currently reading right now, I did start the Mime order last night, which is the second book in the Bone season series. I am absolutely loving this. I am late to the game intentionally, just because with the way I like to consume series, not so much for trilogies because there's only 3 of them, but if it is a larger series, I do prefer having a good chunk of the books coming out before I dive into the series. I just like to take series slow, especially if I feel like I'll love the series. This is definitely like an anxiety thing of mine, but I will put stuff off if I feel like I'm going to love it, because I just want to save it. I'm the same way for like TV shows and stuff. I'm still sitting on a handful of TV shows where I only have to watch like the last 2 episodes. I just don't want them to be over. So the 4th book just came out. I'm on book 2, so we'll be reading this week. And actually I know I am on like a no buy, like a very soft book buying ban until I move this summer. But I did buy The Mask Falling by Samantha Shannon. This is the 4th book in that series. Obviously I haven't gotten to this point yet, and I'm on a book buying ban, so I shouldn't have bought this technically, but this, if you can't tell, it's actually an inverted color design. This is an indie bookstore exclusive, which you could only purchase through indie bookstores, which I thought was really nice. Definitely trying to support more indie bookstores, especially when we're in a pandemic. Smaller the better. So I thought this was a great incentive to have a very gorgeous inverted cover for only indie bookstores, and also it's signed, which is really neat as well. So I shouldn't have bought it, but again, my book buying ban is not so much set in stone as it is. I know I wouldn't have been able to buy this like in December of this year. Once these editions are gone, they're gone. So for books like that, I'm making exceptions because I want to support the author and independent bookstores. And then also I do have a couple of pre-orders that I had thought it was important to pre-order. I wanted to support certain pre-order releases for some debut authors. So I have the Mime order as my current physical book. The audiobook that I'm currently listening to is They Never Learn by Layne Fargo. This was a 2020 release that is a thriller about a woman who is an English professor at a college, and she is a professor by day, but at night she actually goes out and kills sexual predators and people that the justice system lets slip through the cracks. It is very dark, and it deals with a lot of dark subject matter because obviously there's murder. She is a serial killer, but she is killing rapists and killing people who honestly kind of deserve it. It's really good. I started it last night when I was working on something else. I just wanted an audiobook, and I actually got, I think, about 2 hours into it. It's a really good audiobook. And this also does work for female February because the main character is bisexual, and there also is a secondary point of view from a college student that hasn't gotten as much page time as the professor, but this student, I believe, she's at least sapphic in some way. It hasn't said what her explicit orientation is, but she has a crush on her roommate who is also a woman. So I'm really enjoying that as well. I've kind of been in the mood to pick up some thrillers here and there, which is a little bit different from 2020 because I read a ton of thrillers in 2019 and just kind of felt burnt out on the genre in 2020. So I didn't really pick any thrillers up, and I'm kind of starting to feel like I could pick them up again. So I am looking forward to those two. And then we're gonna talk a little bit more about some books that I definitely need to pick up this week because it's one of those weeks where everything has come in from my library at the same time. So here are my 2 bullet journal spreads. I'm going to try for every single book that I pick up this week to fit either on this bingo board or within these prompts. For Blackathon, I am going to be Team Science Fiction Fantasy, so hopefully I can get a lot of crossover in between these. And I already have one marked off for female February. They Never Learn by Layne Fargo is a Sapphic Own Voices book. The author is bisexual. And then I'm thinking I'm going to put the Mime order in the backlist title. So in terms of loans that I have in my library, I have Dolores Claiborne, which honestly, if that lapses, it's no big deal. I'm a big proponent of my library. I like using my library apps a lot, even when I own a physical book. If my library has the audiobook available, I like to listen to them and read them in tandem. It just kind of helps support the library still by using the app, using the audiobook. But I do have the physical copy, and that's not really a priority, even though I would like to read that as my Stephen King pick for the month. Shadow and Bone, this is real unfortunate. I wanted to read this in March, and then it came through. So hopefully I'll be able to get that back in March because I don't think this fits. Definitely doesn't fit for Blackathon. I don't think it fits for any of the female February prompts either. A Kingdom of Flesh and Fire. That also doesn't fit for any of the prompts, I don't think, on either readathon, but I might have to read that within the next 18 days because there was a long wait list for that one, so I have no idea when I'll get that one again. The Mime order, no big deal. Like I said, I actually read at work quite often, and I obviously can't like pull out a book at work that's a little less incognito than my phone. So yeah, I'm also reading through the Mime order here when I have time to read at work. Fires of Vengeance by Evan Winter, I do want to get to that this week. And that would be for Blackathon. It's the sequel to The Rage of Dragons. See, we've got The Mercies, which also came in, which would work for female February. And then we also have The 100,000 Kingdoms, which would work for Blackathon by N.K. Jemisin. So I would like to get through these last 3. I feel like I need to try and at least start all of them this week. So those are all my very ambitious reading plans for this week. We'll see how many books we can power through. I'm definitely in a reading kick this month. I read a lot of great books in January, and then my first book of this month was probably going to be like one of my favorite series this year that I read. So I'm looking forward to reading a lot of good books this week, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. So it's Tuesday now. It's pretty late on Tuesday and today was my day off of work, but I was very productive and I'm feeling pretty good about it. So I actually had about 2 hours left of They Never Learn by Layne Fargo and I wanted to listen to it. I don't normally listen to audiobooks like at my house. I normally listen to them at work or in the car, but I really wanted to finish this audiobook. So I kind of just did like a bunch of cleaning and a bunch of chores just to listen to the audiobook, and I ended up finishing it and I really enjoyed it. This is probably the best thriller that I've read in a really long time. I really enjoyed it. I think I mentioned the synopsis of this at the beginning of the vlog, but it does follow 2 women, and the first point of view is a English professor named Scarlett, and she teaches by day at the local college, and then at night she's a vigilante and she kills men who are abusers, who are rapists, who do terrible things to women, and then they just kind of slip under the radar and justice is not served to them, so she does it herself. So she's a female serial killer and it's very cool to read from her perspective, to be quite honest. And then the second point of view is Carly, and she is a student at this college and she is really trying to figure herself out for the first time. She's coming from a pretty bad family situation and going straight to college, not knowing anyone, and kind of falls in with a very interesting crowd of people and develops a crush on her roommate and wants to go to any length to protect her roommate. So those are the 2 main points of views. The audiobook was really good. It had 2 narrators, one for each point of view, so that was really nice. I will say there were, I think, about 3 major twists in this book. The first one actually comes like halfway through the book. I did not see that coming at all. I remember distinctly I was getting ready for work, and this was yesterday, and I was getting ready for work and I had to like run to my phone, pause the audiobook, rewind it a little bit just to make sure that I had heard it right. That was a really good plot twist that I did not see coming. So that was really fun and really enjoyable. The other 2 twists at the end, I saw them coming about 3 chapters before each of them happened, but I felt like it was in a way where it wasn't like so obvious that the book was boring because I had guessed the twists. I felt so gratified that the author had left little clues throughout the book and I had pieced them together, which is really fun and really rewarding. So if you are a person who always likes to be completely bamboozled at the end, you probably might guess one of these twists, maybe not all of them, but I don't mind that. For my thriller reading tastes, I think that's an example of a better written thriller when there are really good clues and you can kind of figure out who did it. So I finished that one. I highly enjoyed it. And then I am also currently working my way through the Mime order. I am on page 306 and I believe there's about 500 pages in this book. So I am more than halfway through and I'm really enjoying this one so far. The first book, I feel like really there's a lot of world building, a lot of magic system building, and really developing the world. And there is a plot, but it's a smaller plot in terms of the whole 7-book series. This one is really building the roots for the rest of the story arc, so that's really exciting to see. I'm absolutely loving this one, and I feel like the first one, I felt like I could take a month break in between them because it wasn't so much of a big cliffhanger or anything like that. This one, I have a feeling I might want to jump directly into book 3 when I'm done with it, so I'm really enjoying my read of this. And then at work yesterday, I picked up another audiobook just because Scribd, for whatever reason, it just doesn't work at work. It'll work everywhere else. I can listen to it in the car. That's what I was listening to They Never Learn on, but for whatever reason, even when I've downloaded an audiobook at work, I don't know if it's just the really lousy service that I have at work, but it drains my battery like no other just at work. So I didn't listen to Scribd. I actually listened to a Libby audiobook for work yesterday, and I actually picked up Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King. I had no idea what I was getting into when I hopped into this book, just that there is a movie starring Kathy Bates. I think this came out after Misery, and I think Stephen King has said that he wrote this book with Dolores, like with Kathy Bates in mind when he was writing this character, and then she ended up playing her in the movie adaptation, so the power when it comes to that. But this is about a woman named Dolores Claiborne, and you find out at the beginning of this that she is being brought in and being questioned for murder because she is being accused of murdering her employer. She's worked as a live-in nurse for this old woman on the island where she lives. And what I did not expect about this, I'm listening to the audiobook, and the narrator is really wonderful. This is definitely a book where I would highly recommend the audiobook, because this entire physical book, this is actually Dolores Claiborne when she's at the police station being investigated as a suspect in this murder trial. So this is all just like a deposition. It's literally Dolores sitting down and talking like she's being interviewed, and there are no chapters, there are no like page breaks or anything like that. It's just one long monologue, and it is so conversational, and I really feel like this is King at his best slash worst, depending on whether or not you like this part about his writing or not. But this is so conversational. This feels like maybe calling up an older relative on the phone, or even like your mom or someone like that, and you're talking to them and you're like, okay, I gotta go. And they're like, okay, cool, but just wait a second, and then they'll give you like an unrelated story, and then you'll still be on the phone like an hour later. This is what it feels like. It is very, very conversational, but it's just so fun to listen to the narrator. So I would highly recommend, if you can, picking up the audiobook. So I'm actually having a really fun time reading this, and this is one that I didn't really have any high expectations going into. I feel like with a lot of Stephen King books, it's really easy to have preconceived notions of what the book's gonna be. I had no idea for this one, so this is a very pleasant surprise. And I'm on page 94 of 305. So we'll try and see how much. I will try and get close to finishing this tomorrow. And then one last thing before I leave this update for today, but I got some book mail today, and it was actually a book I was thinking about pre-ordering. I didn't. I've seen a lot of people talking about this one, and it's been getting a lot of good reviews from people who have similar reading taste to me, so I went ahead and picked it up. I know I'm terrible at this whole semi-book buying ban, but I had a coupon, and this cover really speaks to me. It was actually in my January most anticipated releases. That's gonna be Persephone Station by Stina Late. And this is the first in a sci-fi space opera trilogy, and this is supposed to be for fans of The Mandalorian, so I'm looking forward to that. On the back here it says the vibe is Casablanca meets The Magnificent Seven meets The Mandalorian, so that is a blurb for this book for sure. And then the book is actually dedicated to, for all my lady friends, thanks for being the Ivy to my Harley. Let's team up, hit the patriarchy in the face with a baseball bat a few times, and make the world a better place. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this one. This is sapphic, so I'm hoping to maybe read this later this month for Female February. The TBR just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger at this point, but I'm really excited about this. The cover is really stunning. I'm very excited about this one, so I just had to show that to you guys. And speaking of sci-fi, me and my partner started, I was just about to say The Mandalorian because I was just talking about this. We started WandaVision. That was one that we've been wanting to watch since it first came out, and we've been looking forward to it for forever. We're very big Marvel people in this household, but it's just been one of those months where ever since it came out, we haven't really gotten a chance to sit down and prioritize it. We've just had other priorities for our very limited like free time. The past couple of weeks, like our work schedules have been very opposite to each other, so when we wanted to spend time together, we didn't really want to like focus on something new and focus on something other than like each other and hanging out. So we watched the first 3 episodes, and they are very good. I am very excited. I think we're gonna watch the next 2 episodes that are out so far, at least tomorrow, and then Friday, of course, the 6th episode comes out. So I think we'll try and start watching them like when they come out, because TikTok is very ruthless about spoiling things. I'm definitely not one of those people who gets like very stingy about spoilers. I understand that if you don't want to be spoiled, especially in the age of social media, you might want to get to watching it sooner rather than later, but I feel like there should be like a grace period of at least a week because these episodes come out at like midnight, and then like during the episode in real time people are posting spoilers about it. Like, can you give me a day to catch up, kids? I got a job. So yeah, we're really enjoying that. I'm really enjoying the books I'm reading, but I am going to go for this update. I'm gonna say I'll probably talk to you guys on Thursday just because I have more free time on my days off of like my physical work job where I have to actually go into work. I have less time on those days to actually sit down and film like a cohesive update, and I always feel like by the time I get home from work, I work out, make dinner, all of that, by the end of the night, I want to actually like read or prioritize something like that rather than sit down and talk about reading. So I'll probably talk to you guys not tomorrow but on Thursday. So yeah, I will see you in the next update. Hey guys, it is now Friday, so Thursday I actually did not update at all, but I did get a lot of reading done because I actually started and finished Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno-Garcia. Was it on any of my TBRs? No, it absolutely wasn't, but this was just sitting on my shelves, and I think because Silvia Moreno-Garcia is coming out with 2 books this year. The first one is a brand new release coming out sometime this summer, and then in like September, I believe, Tor is actually republishing one of her books that has been out of print for a while that's actually my favorite. I don't know, it's in between that and Mexican Gothic, but Certain Dark Things comes out in September again, and I have read it through my library. I absolutely love it. I'm excited it's going to be back in print again, but I think she was just on my mind as an author, and I haven't read this one yet, and I saw it on my shelves, and it's pretty short. It's 330 pages, something like that, so I just decided to pick it up and read some of it, and then I just ended up finishing the whole thing yesterday. I really enjoyed this one, and I think what this solidified, so this is not my favorite of Silvia Moreno-Garcia's works, but I think this really solidified that she's an author that's pretty much going to be like an auto-buy author, or an author where I check out every single new release, because this is written so differently than Certain Dark Things, and it's written so differently than Mexican Gothic, but those writing choices are intentional. All of her books are standalones, and they're all in very different genres, and because, you know, they are all by the same author, you can tell she's a very good writer. She's got a very distinctive writing style, even though she changes it up with each genre that she writes to fit the genre more. But she has a really cool chameleon-esque type of style where this is written in a fantasy mythology retelling, so it feels like a traditional fairy tale of Mayan folklore, and the writing style really reflects that. It does feel like you are reading a fairy tale story, and it's definitely crafted, and the narrative is crafted, and even like things like dialogue and certain characteristic choices are crafted with that in mind. So this was a fun read for that aspect. This takes place in 1920s Mexico. This follows a young girl named Cassiopeia, and she is a sort of Cinderella-esque type of character. Her and her mother are living at her grandfather's house. Her life is very hard. Her father was like a very lower social standing than her mother. He has now died, so she and her mother have to live with her grandfather, and there's a lot of resentment because of that, because they kind of lowered their stations for her father. And Cassiopeia really dreams of a better world. It's the 1920s. The jazz age is infectious. It's definitely different than American 1920s, but you can see the culture sort of blending through, and that was what was really cool about this novel too, is that you see traditional Mexican heritage and culture kind of being influenced by American 1920s culture. So I thought that was very interesting and really set up the scene. But she dreams of better worlds, but she lives in this small town and she doesn't think she's ever going to get out of that. She's never going to adventure. She doesn't really have anything to her name, even though her grandfather is wealthy, because her and her mother are disgraced. One day, she finds a secretive chest in her grandfather's home, and she opens it up, and the Mayan god of death comes out of it. Since she is the one who releases him from this bondage, she is kind of contractually obligated to help him find his missing body parts that his trickster brother has kind of hid, because his brother wants control of the underworld, even though this god of death is the rightful ruler of this underworld. So they embark on a journey together, him to get his missing parts and to reclaim his throne. And then she comes along because she is bound to him in this kind of mythical sort of fantasy retelling way, and he also promises her a better life if she helps him in his quest. So that was this one. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good time. I obviously read it in a day, so this is very fast-paced, and it is a standalone. So if you're looking for a faster-paced standalone, it's really cool. I don't think I've ever read anything that is like Mayan inspired terms of mythology before, so that was really fun as well. Now I am gonna let you go because I do have to go to work today, but I will be reading more during work. I do actually have 2 different audiobooks that I'm working on. I'm almost done with Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King, and then I started last night Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor, and I'm enjoying both of them. I believe Remote Control is technically a novella, so the audiobook is only 4 hours long, so I think I should be able to finish one or the other of those today. But I do have to kind of get ready for work a little bit more and then leave, and I will talk to you guys hopefully, if not tonight, then tomorrow morning. So it is now Saturday, and I do have quite a few books to catch you guys up on. I actually read a ton of books this week, which is really cool. I think I am going to start doing like mid-month wrap-ups instead of just one wrap-up at the end of each month, because honestly, at the last couple of months, I've pretty much been on track to kind of read 10 plus books a month. So that's just like a lot to fit into one video, and I feel like if I actually spend the time doing in-depth reviews of each one, or at least make sure that the reviews are in-depth enough for me to actually recommend books to you guys and talk about why I didn't like or why I liked them, I feel like I'm gonna have to divide it up and have like 5 or so books per video. And I think this week is really indicative of that, because I've been in such a good reading mood, and I think at the beginning of this video, I think I had only finished one book in February, and then I think by the end of this I'm on book 7 or 8. So I read an insane amount of books this week, which is pretty crazy, and hopefully that's like a good sign for 2021, because when I read a lot of books, I'm happy. Obviously there are exceptions to this rule, but like as a general note of thumb for myself and just tracking my own mental health, I've noticed that the months that I do tend to read a lot are better mental health months for me, just because reading is such an escape for me. So, but yeah, I mean, definitely my vlogs sometimes are more like giving multiple updates on a book as I'm reading it, but I've pretty much been kind of hopping on here and being like, this is a book that I finished this week, not all weeks are gonna be like that, but this was a very conducive week to reading. So I last talked to you yesterday and I was in the middle of 2 different books. I have finished both of them. So the first one is going to be Dolores Claiborne by Stephen King. This was really good. I would have to double check, but I do have like a spreadsheet and a list of all of Stephen King's books because I am trying to purchase them all. Gotta catch them all like Pokemon cards, but I have a spreadsheet and I do have them every time I read a book. I kind of try and put it in a list. I'm very bad at making definitive lists, but just like a general sense of how much I liked each book in like order of best to worst, at least in my opinion, Stephen King books. Obviously, this is always subject to change because I've definitely not read everything by Stephen King. And actually that list doesn't have a lot of books that I have read before by Stephen King because if I read it in high school or younger, I'm not counting it because I want to do a reread and see how I feel about it as an adult. So I think, don't quote me on this because it's definitely not an all-encompassing Stephen King list, but this I think is in my top 10. If it's not in my top 10, it's very close to it at the moment. I really enjoyed this. I think in the nicest possible way, Dolores Claiborne really feels like one of my grandmas. The narrator was wonderful. She has that wonderful old-timey accent. I know the narrator is supposed to be from Maine. My grandma's from Iowa, but just certain little things that Dolores was saying just really made me feel like home, like little things like whoosh and stuff like that just really made me smile. So like that's a very personal connection that I had to this book, and I just really enjoyed Dolores as a main character. This is again told very conversationally. This is one giant interview. Dolores Claiborne is accused of killing her employer, so she goes down to the police station, she's being interrogated, and she is giving her account of what happened. So this whole entire book, there are no chapters, there aren't really any breaks in the narrative, it's just one long monologue, and definitely I think the way to go for that one would have to be audiobook, although the book itself is really nice. It does have some like moon patterns and like an eclipse pattern going on in the book, which is important to the book, but in like a spoilery sort of way. But I really enjoyed this. I think Stephen King, especially in his older books, has some issues writing women at times, and honestly I think Dolores Claiborne might be his best woman character that he's created. She feels very real. Her struggles feel very real. This book is dedicated to his mother. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and I'm really glad I read it, and for whatever reason I was called to read it this month because this is definitely one that I wasn't really in any rush to get to. I haven't heard too many things about it. I know there's a movie adaptation that I haven't heard anything about, so I might pick that up. I'm not a big movie person though, to be honest, so I'm really glad that I felt compelled to pick it up. So that was Dolores Claiborne. The next book that I'm going to talk about, I'm going to insert it right here because I listened to it via audiobook on Libby, and this was for Blackathon Team Science Fiction Fantasy, and this was reading a book that kind of symbolizes African spiritualism. And I read Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor, and this was a very interesting African futurism novella, and I don't want to give too much away because it is very short. The audiobook is 4 hours long, and let me see, on Goodreads it has 160 pages. I made the intentional choice to have this be my first book or kind of fiction by Nnedi Okorafor because I thought a novella would be like a perfect sample of the author's work. This novella wasn't necessarily like my favorite thing that I read this week, but I did really enjoy it, and it wasn't because of the writing. It definitely makes me want to pick up, I believe it's the Akata Witch series. I think that'll just be like a little bit more up my alley in terms of books and like genres that I like to read, so I'm definitely interested in checking out more by the author. I thought this was a great sampling, but this is following our young protagonist. She's a 15-year-old girl named Sankofa, and she is Death's companion. There's 2 kind of different timelines going on with this one. It is following her before she became Death's companion, and this is actually a past that she has forgotten when she kind of transformed. And then it also follows her as she is this kind of handmaiden of death. She goes around from village to village kind of searching for something, and I don't want to give that away, but she is like on a quest for something, and she also helps people that are like dying. She's kind of like an angel of death in that she has the capacity to give people a painless death. So some people seek her out, others are afraid of her, and it really follows those two timelines, and it follows kind of not just our main protagonist, but the reactions that she gets from the people around her because of her power. So this was very interesting. It was written very beautifully. I was hooked from the first kind of paragraph. It starts off in the middle of action before it backs up and kind of gives an introduction to the story, and you're immediately wondering what is going on. Things are very bizarre and unexplained, and I really enjoyed that, and the writing style is beautiful. I do highly recommend the audiobook, especially if you don't really have an introduction to sort of African futurism and Afrofuturism. I believe that Nnedi Okorafor prefers African futurism as a term for their work. The narrator is really good, and obviously for someone who is very Western, this is definitely why I enjoy especially works that are taking place in different countries, different continents, that have sprinklings of different languages and different cultures throughout. I like hearing what actually is the pronunciation. I think it's a lot easier than reading it physically and having to look up and listen to the pronunciation of every single word. So I thought that just really made the story come alive, and I really enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to picking up more by this author. I kind of wanted more from this story, but I thought it was an interesting story. I feel like this isn't the best kind of critique because it is a novella for a reason. Its purpose is that it's shorter. I just wish it were longer. Some things are never explained, so know that going in here. And yeah, it also felt like Gods of Jade and Shadow. It felt very much like mythology or kind of folklore, that sort of story. So you almost have a distance in the story just in terms of the story techniques itself, and I think that's purposeful. And yeah, it was really interesting, and I'm looking forward to checking out more from Nnedi Okorafor. But that is the last book that I finished up this week, so I am going to be weekly vlogging next week. I'm wrapping this vlog up now, but just as a little preview of books that I am reading at the moment, I picked up another audiobook, and I'm actually listening to Laziness Does Not Exist by Devon, PhD, and this is talking about the myth of laziness, and our society is so breakneck that laziness has really become an insult and something to be hated, and there's just this mad rush to be productive all the time, and it's really taking a toll on like an individual's health. I'm looking forward to it. I haven't listened to so much so far, but I think it's going to be a nonfiction book that I'm really going to enjoy. And then actually after I film this vlog clip, I am going to be diving into Honey Girl by Morgan Rogers, and this is okay. So I heard it was a romance about a woman who is very straight-laced, very type A, goes to Vegas to celebrate getting her PhD, and she wakes up the next morning married to a woman she has never met before. So I thought that was like a really fun sounding romance, like very outlandish, and I definitely thought that would just be like a very fun festive read for February. But I've heard from Riley Marie Reads that this is a lot more than just a romance. There's a lot of reflection in the main character's life going on as well, and I think it takes a little bit of a different direction that makes me even more excited to pick this book up. So I'm looking forward to picking this book up next week as well. But that is going to be it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching. Definitely give it a thumbs up if you liked this video, leave a comment down below, subscribe to my channel for more content. Stay safe, stay spooky, and I'll see y'all on the other side. Bye!